Hello, welcome to another segment of Hanging with Dead Guys. Today, I have to warn you, this is a little bit bizarre for me. I go a little bit more beyond effigies this time, but I had a unique opportunity and decided to take it. I am at the Holy Trinity Church in Rothwell, Northamptonshire, and there's a 13th century bone crypt. There's only two crypts in UK. One's down in Kent, and the other one is up here in Northamptonshire. What they have is they have a crypt containing about 1,500 individuals, mostly skulls and thigh bones, as medievally it was their belief that those were the only bones necessary for sorry, I had a mental infarction there for a second, but I meant to say reincarnation. So like you said, you see big piles of thigh bones and lots of skulls stacked on shelves on the sides. What they believe is that these particular bones were cleared out to make room because either the graveyard got too crowded or because of the additional building they got moved out. So they ended up getting stacked up here in the crypt itself. Most of 90% of the skulls are male. They believe that the reason is because they've lasted longer because of robustness. And there's two different distinct types, and they can date them, the two different distinct types, to two different time periods. You'll have like the type 1 skull, which is more whitish in appearance, and it also has a higher, shorter forehead, and then the type 2, which actually they believe dates to the 17th century, is actually a lower, longer forehead, and they're also quite a bit darker. It was assumed that the darker skulls were because of the practice of burying in coffins began about this time, and they thought that probably it was the tannins and oak that had leached into the skulls. But however, what they've found out through scientific investigation later is that these particular skulls actually is the remainder of petrified flesh. So it's part of the putrefaction process that's here. So now that we can see you'll be able to recognize the distinct types quite easily, not by the darkness, but also by the forehead design. So I've seen there's examples of, overall they're fairly healthy, but there are examples of arthritis, rickets, and a couple of other ailments, as well as broken bones, etc. I'm going to flip this camera around. I'm going to take you for a little tour around this. It's quite a very large room actually in it, but it's very, very, very full at this time. So there's just really a walking path around the perimeter and just through the center aisle. So let me flip this around and we'll show you dead guys. Okay, this will be shaky because I'm walking down steps, and it's actually fairly confined space, but this will give you a sense of coming into the bone crypt for yourself. So mind the shake as I look at the steps and look at the screen and try to figure out where I'm at and not trip and skull. So trip and break my skull and end up down here permanently myself. Anyways, here's your first sign of a large stack of thigh bones with some skulls on top. Most of these skulls here are partial or not very complete, and you can see fragile bones do not touch. I'll pan here on the left. You see some skulls stacked up on the wall, and quite a distinct. And then here's a nice little thing that I like to show. Is you see this has a regular square shape to the thumb, but then also you can see some marrow in different layers. So it looks like perhaps it could have something hindered the skull at an angle, or perhaps it had been punctured and then started to heal back again. I don't know. I'm not an expert at this. You'll see a lot of varying states. Now, that one individual I showed you, he definitely had the short, high forehead. You can see it's very high. Other examples showing a lower, longer forehead, and then so you can see the lower, longer forehead. A little bit better in these individuals here. And you can also see quite a bit of darkness in here. They believe, they're not entirely accurate, but they believe that the average age of death for the majority of these skeletons are about 42 years of age. So, and you can see they're all in varying stages of breaking down or falling apart. You can see some of the sutures coming apart from where the plates of the skull started to actually separate and go around. Like I said, there's quite a few individuals here. We'll go over to the other side really quick, and we'll see. Now, the crypt is dated to the 13th century for sure, and they can believe that through some of the individuals. So you can see a very white skull with a high forehead. You can definitely see he's a 13th century. One of the things that you do note about these individuals here are the skulls are quite smallish. There's some that are larger than others, but quite a few of them are what I would consider to be dainty, actually, in comparison to my noggin. But you can see quite, they each all have been numbered. I'm not sure what the numbering is, either that they were the number that they were cataloged or the number that they were dug out. You can see one down here with the number 20, and then I've seen like a number 299 on some skulls, 149. I see some of them actually have two sets of numbers, one set in Sharpie and another set on ink on a brown looking paint. So you can definitely see some, there we go, there's nicks in the skull. I don't know if that's either because of it being dug out and an implement, some older holes. This definitely looks like it's been part of the skull itself. And then some chips that you can see. You can actually see the things that you can definitely easily assume that they're part of the process. Now, a lot of these are bagged. I'm not quite sure why some of these are bagged and some are not. See number 19 here. He's actually got a number, looks like 8 as well on front of him. Some are partially bagged, some still in bags. Some have some writing. You can see this fellow was probably had his used for scientific experimentation or to check and see. See differences of skulls. There are actually some artifacts and some other things you can see. Like here's the top of a skull that's actually been bruised and some caving in, and either been broken and healed up after the fact because it's well closed, and some other fractures on there. It does look like it might have been pieced back together possibly at one point. I'm not sure. You can see some other examples. They definitely have artifacts from the 13th and the 16th century that they've found down in the crypt as well. As you can see here, here's a big pile of bones here. You can see, and actually this stack is just about as tall as my head, believe it or not. And then here's the back end of the crypt where you see some more thigh bones packed up. The other side is pretty much the same. Okay, so here I just kind of popped over the other side. I paused the video for a second, but you can see some of the other skulls here. You can see quite the lower, longer, shallower, and so here's a kind of good example between the. Here, we'll just keep this up here, but here's a higher, well, a short, high forehead versus a low, long forehead. I keep hope. I can't touch the bones. I would have loved to have been able to show you two relatively decent looking skulls side by side showing the two different types, the two distinct types on there. And we're not quite sure. We also know that type 1 skulls had a higher predominance of O blood type, where actually the type 2 are more indicative of the actual the modern population. So which is an ABO type. Anyways, I don't think there's a whole lot more that we can show right here. You can see some of the breaks where the suture comes out on the video and stuff, if you're interested in this stuff. Hopefully we'll see some more effigies here soon. I don't think I'll get an opportunity to go visit some other effigies today, but I'll get some on the video on my blog here soon. So if you guys have any comments, please ask. I do have some additional pictures if you're interested, or contact for the church if you'd like to come visit. The church itself is actually lovely. I haven't quite spent the time because we went straight down here. I'll be looking up at the church here soon, but then you can actually see kind of the scope of the crypt. So thank you. Comment, please.